is absolutely a zesty lifer, and that's what this whole session is about. It's about living zestily, and for whatever that means to each of you. You get the vibe. We're saying live full, live happy, live in your strengths. And she's going to tell you her story, but I met Claire at the Women's Business Development Council Center last June, was it?
Summer, fall.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And we, yes, it was last fall. Yeah, on a branding panel, and we kind of connected, and I think she has a fabulous approach. She's clearly combined. Now, you had your undergraduate degree is in sociology and design, graphic design. Then she went on to work you designed your own handbag line. She has lived in Los Angeles and San Diego and Colorado, San Francisco.
And Venice Beach.
Wow. She's worked in retail as well as in design. And today, I often talk about how our optimal place is where our aspirations, our experiences, and our gifts converge. Your gifts being those things that just come naturally, your aspirations, those things that move you, that you feel called to, that excite you. And then your experiences are all those things that, you're carrying in your trunk. Your formal training, your informal training, but also your experience, the experiences that you've had in your life. And Claire's she's a fabulous example of that happening. I read your bio and I think, I can totally see now. Her company now is called Blossom Creative, and it's all about brand. But it's brand from a business perspective, it's brand from a personal, leadership perspective. It's that alignment between what you see in all aspects of what it is that you're presenting, and it's clearly that convergence. So she's fabulous with great things to share, and let's everybody welcome her. Yay! So, there are a couple things that we always ask about when we're here. We talk about passion and a sense of purpose, and how we found those things and lessons learned. But why don't you start out by telling us how you knew, or how you got to that convergence? I have an idea of how those things came together, but what led you to Colossum?
Well, I imagine with most entrepreneurs, it was a work in progress for many years. Came out of school and really didn't want to go the graphic arts route because I didn't think that it was a career, that it wasn't smart. It wasn't a smart move to do. So I promised myself and a teacher that I would go after graphic arts because he said it was wasting talent if I didn't. And I wanted to, but I was scared. I did it, I said, for 5 years. And if by 5 years I can do it, then I'll stick with it. If I can't make a living, then I'll go to something more practical. And I succeeded. I did well creatively, and for a decade I worked in the corporate world, in marketing companies, communication companies, leading up to top-level creative director. And at a decade I wasn't happy. I wasn't challenged in work. I didn't feel fulfilled. I was very out of balance, working a ton. And so I started to get the guts up to leave. And for probably another 5 years, I jumped in and out of corporate world and being independent. And the security of being independent would insecurity would scare me back to the corporate world, and I would go back there. I wasn't confident enough to stay out. What I call and in that 5 years, I had the handbag line. I went back to school and got a second degree in fashion, merchandise, product development. I love fashion. I've always had a nuance for image and beauty world all around. And so I waffled in between, and then I call it the perfect storm. I suddenly found myself in Chicago, jobless, single, and marketless. When I looked at my experiences, I wanted a job, a corporate job that gave me all of that all of my talents, and I couldn't find one. And I had learned in my many moves to these Vail, San Francisco, San Diego now, Venice Beach, was that no matter where, I was tired of chasing my tail. I wasn't going to find happiness in another city or find a career in another city. I needed to make my home where I was and embrace who I was. So my awareness of my passion of art and creativity, my persistence for utilizing my gifts and my talents instead of trying to push them to the side and be approved by society or my family, and my persistence to go, you know what, I'm going to try. And so I've now been in Chicago 3 years. When I started Coliseum 3 years ago, which by the way, Coliseum, the definition is is the optic nerve that connects the left side of the brain to the right side of the brain, connecting what I say design and function, which is very much my personality. I have the eye for design, but I don't design into a void. I think you have to be practical. And so that's my approach to life in general. So of my 3 years, the first year, I was a freelancer. I was sort of independent, but not willing to say I had a company, because if it didn't succeed, oh boy. And then the second year, I started to develop structures around it and get a little bit more committed. And I would say my peak moment of when I turned and said, this is it, this is what I'm doing, I'm never going back, I had hired a coach, a personal coach, and we focused on my career because I wasn't enjoying my career. I said, this is what I want to do, but I put a heap of pressure on myself to succeed, and she helped me to look at that you can have your passion in your career. And it turned out that it was a family teaching when I was young that work is not allowed to be enjoyable. And I just had to dismantle that and go, if I do what I enjoy, I will be successful. And I dropped all the little kitchen sink items that I was offering as services and stuck to what I enjoyed, had a passion, and that's when my business thrived.
Yeah. And you know, it's really important. I think that there are so many things that are critical in what you said in telling your story, but remember we were talking before I made you dance about creating space. Now, what Claire did was she brought an intensity and a focus to one combined kind of area of expertise. And what that does is it magnifies, it helps you become more literate in how you express what it is that you do and what people know you for. It makes it easier for people to find you, because if you're not quite right, they're not wasting their time, they're not wasting your time. But then it's also beautiful that if you bring that focus to it and you trust. Now let's talk about faith and all of that.
Okay.
Did you find that your faith grew in that possibility? Like when you finally kind of dropped all the kitchen sink pieces, what was happening to you internally?
A little bit of panic. A lot of, you can do this. A lot of, this is kind of like you now have permission to be your best, be your greatest. And I have some confidence issues. From way back when I wasn't bad enough. Good job, Claire. Excellent work. So I became stubborn, very, very determined, very committed. It makes for a great entrepreneur. But sometimes I don't have the confidence. And so what I did was I leaned on my support group. And I found all sorts of tools, and I created the believers around me instead of the people that questioned me. And I also went out to them and I asked, I did an exercise called Unique Ability. I said, tell me what's unique about Claire. And to 20 people that knew me very well. And things that came back were very repetitive. And those are the things that make me successful in my business. And I may not believe it, but they certainly believed it in me. And in reading that, I grew my faith and I grew my commitment. And I gave myself the patience to allow it to unfold instead of trying to force it.